Okay, it's in between. The
I need
rules
your-
being that Sean interrupt me
your
while I
beer
try to interrupt
opener,
the rules.
There you go.
That if the kitties are around, you know what it is. Uncle Todd doesn't want to do monkey beeps on Saturday because he's too lazy. So
It's racist.
Richard's going to cuss today.
8 beeps.
All right,
Fuck you.
so Richard is want to talk about Dark Crystal and also Carnival Row.
I think that the truth of what he wants to talk about is almost like when people tell you how good something is and you're trying it, that kind of thing.
You try to find the part to it.
maybe that's the gist of what we're going to talk about.
So I watched Netflix's Dark. Oh,
I'm not
I've got
the only
Sean
one that
disease.
drinks.
I've got
Thank you.
Netflix's Dark.
Dark Crystal. Oh,
So I watched Dark Crystal.
Stop, everybody.
The Age
Shut
of
up for a second.
Resistance, or the Start of Resistance, or what it was called. With I think that's the Star Wars name, Age of Resistance. Anyway, no, they're both called Age of Resistance.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I was never a huge
Damn.
Dark Crystal fan. I liked the movie, but I'm not
You
like,
like
oh, gotta
Fizz
watch.
Giz
So
or
this
anything?
is a prequel.
It is a prequel.
Right? It's
Okay.
a prequel. Brings back Henson Studios. Brian Froud, who did the designs on some of the originals, back doing all the designs for this as well. And the first episode is not good.
Of Dark Crystal.
It is not
Okay.
good.
Like slow or what?
Just it's slow. You're dropped into this world. You're not really unsure what's going on. It took me a little bit to get back into puppetry.
Okay.
I'm so used to CG characters and movement in the face that even though these characters have the traditional Henson kind of like eyes blink and the mouths move a little bit differently and ears wiggle kind of thing.
It all like hiding at bottom of the characters so you don't see legs or whatever.
Right. Yeah. You just took a little bit to kind of get used to that kind of movement again.
Okay.
Plus, the first episode just wasn't compelling. I don't know. It just wasn't interesting. But by the time you get to the second episode and they start building this world and you start seeing the creativity they've put into the characters and the creatures and the world, it becomes really start fascinating. And by the time I got to episode 3, I was hooked. And it becomes this real big, gigantic world with all these possibilities. And I took to Facebook, as I am to do when I like something, and said, "Hey, this is pretty fantastic. I haven't seen something quite this big of an epic since like the Lord of the Rings." And immediately I had 3 or 4 people try and tell me how amazing Carnival Row was on Amazon. And so, we finished Dark Crystal, went all the way through it. And this last week, Chris and I were like, well, we're going to check out Carnival Row because everybody said it's amazing. And I couldn't get into it. And I reached out to a friend and say, hey, I'm 2 episodes in and does it get better? Because I'm not really enjoying it. And I kind of got the response that maybe it's just not for you, but I loved it. It was one of my favorite things I've seen all year long. And I can't, the weird pressure to like everybody likes something, therefore you should like it. And I almost want to kind of go on like a mini rant on Facebook about the fact like, hey guys, I honestly tried your suggestion out. I do not see what you guys see in it. Please tell me what you enjoy about the world because it is dark. It is dour. I just came off the Dark Crystal where the creatures are colorful. It's bright. They built a set. And I basically went to like Penny Dreadful-est. Like it was the world of Penny Dreadful, but without the interesting characters.
Right.
And they have it rips off of Fables, first of all, by the way. It's about some fairy tale fantasy characters from another world that are kind of pushed away out of their own lands because of war, and then they come to this kind of American or American English city that's in the 18 or 1900s, and there's like a murder or a mystery going on that's inside of it. That's literally Fables. Okay. So I don't know what Amazon spent their budget on. Because when I watch Dark Crystal, when I watch Game of Thrones, and they CG some motherfucking dragons
that are just stunningly done.
Just like watch the first episode. Like when they decide to take the fairies and show them fly, you see buzzy wings. The minute they land, it's actual bath towels. Their wings are little saggy bath towels.
So I watched the first 30 minutes of the first episode because I will say that for whatever reason, I do think Orlando Bloom has some chops. I think
he's good,
I think what he did in Lord of the Rings, when you take a character like Legolas that is such a unapologetic, almost beautiful hero. And actually had a little bit of darkness into it. I thought he did some great touches with it, and those are his choices, probably along with Peter Jackson. So when I saw this, and I love old England, I love that kind of world, so I was actually kind of geeked on it. I felt like the world was forced on me more than I've felt a world forced on me. At least with, Game of Thrones, yes, you got the fantastical first here, the White Walkers, the very first scene, and then we go to, it's almost like it could be anywhere. It's old England kind of thing, living in a castle, and it's set a world. This just felt like immediately, ooh, there are fairies, and I'm going to be a badass fairy. And I just thought it was just too stupid for me.
We're thrown into this random kind of fight with these giant trees in the middle of the woods where some unknown force is killing a bunch of fairies. And then we get on a ship, and the ship crash lands, and now we're in a city.
And we find out that the heroine who led us there has an old picture of Orlando Bloom. So there's a character, they're related somehow.
There wasn't anything, and I don't want to knock people who really enjoyed it, and I really want to kind of watch it again to see if I can kind of
I'm going to probably force myself at some point.
I want to see what's so fascinating about it, but just from its opening couple of episodes, and I just said Dark Crystal wasn't that great in the first couple of episodes. It just didn't, it was like, oh, it's the best thing. It's amazing. I'm like, I'm living in the reality of Penny Dreadful combined with some fantastic creatures like you might see in Dark Crystal, and none of the individual actors or characters are really exciting at this point.
That was
They're
my
just
problem.
kind of drab.
That even with Orlando Bloom, I just wasn't that interested. It's almost like his introduction is he comes upon two beat cops kind of picking on somebody for selling something incorrect. And it is so cliched because immediately when you see it, you're like, he's the detective. They're the lower end. This one kid's, I knew it. This one kid's not going to know it. He's going to say something to him, and I'll be damned if the scene didn't play out that way.
And we've got fairies with bath towel wings. Mm-hmm. We've got characters that are supposed to have horns on their head that basically just looks like they're wearing a paper mache hat of horns.
Right.
And we've got a couple of fairies that have blue wigs on. Like, I'm not really seeing anything that makes me think Amazon spent any budget. I mean, this could be a sci-fi show.
Well, I mean, on the other side of it, are you watching The Boys?
Oh, I love The Boys.
Did they spend their money on that instead of Carnival Row? So The
I
Boys,
don't know. When you've got actors like that, I think they spin it both places. Go ahead.
So The Boys is not sticking directly to the comics.
No, comic is much worse.
It has a whole the
go
comics
get the comic book guys,
so
but
much
not for the kiddies.
You can go to ZeusComics.com to order that comic.
As much as as much as Todd has enjoyed a actor on the show that does not necessarily make it to the end of it, the show, the comic books are so much worse than what's happening on the
worse
TV
as
show.
in there, Garth Ennis was really trying to push some buttons. Did we talk about Boys yet?
We really haven't, and I would, at some point I need to buy. Is that compiled into one?
They finished the first season. They're working on the second.
But
season.
as far as a book,
there's
can
four
I
volumes out so far.
It's
I need
done.
to buy those at some point.
It's going to be 6 volumes
done,
total. The fourth one, literally, I think just came out this week.
My whole new approach of buying graphic novels and compiled stuff instead, I need to finish Saga, whatever we're up to. Because I think I stopped with book 6.
They quit doing that until...
Yeah, I knew they did, but I stopped at book 6.
But
so
The
I need
Boys
to do that
is
and
done,
The Boys.
Okay, can I just say something else?
I don't know.
Just real quick. Let me come back for a second.
Hit him.
Let me come back to Carnival.
Now.
Let me come back to Carnival Row.
You lose.
Why is it called Carnival Row? Is that going to be relevant to me at some point?
I have a feeling
is it the name of a city? Is it the name of the street?
I thought that was the name of where they lived.
I thought it had been like, Dead Man's Alley or whatever, where Batman goes and his parents were killed.
But there's nothing about this
that
that relates
Carnival
to a
Row
carnival.
where the bad
There's
things
nothing about this that
happen.
relates to a carnival in terms of what's happening. Like, it should describe the show on some of them. The Boys describes the show. Dark Crystal describes something that is relevant to the show and the point of the entire show. Carnival Row means nothing to me at this point. I'm expecting Carnival Row. I'm expecting a fair.
Maybe it's eventually when we find out what the backstory is between Orlando Bloom and that young lady.
Mixing all these strange creatures together is a carnival.
I had immediately said, "Oh, this is Penny Dreadful," but as soon as you said that, I was like, "Yeah, shit, that is." And usually,
you gave me a weird look. I don't know. I haven't watched the show either.
I know, I just think it's a weird name. It didn't pull me in.
My reply when someone says to me, "Have you watched it?" In fact, a friend today said, "Have you watched this?" what the fuck was that? He asked me if I'd watched.
Television show?
It was a television show.
With
The streaming services?
It was the new Jack Ryan with with John Krasinski on Amazon. And I'm like, yeah, I don't really care. And he said, yeah, it's kind of like Homeland, which I'm like, yeah, I don't really care either because that's nothing but
that's not your genre, your style. Those are just not.
I like if you do it well, but what I feel with something like Homeland is Homeland has a really good potential. Its first season was incredibly interesting, and then they went down and almost made it into just another, because they're the same people that made 24. It was the same procedural kind of thing, but let's do this, let's do that. It made some interesting choices, but I thought it's not enough for me to go down that path. So Carnival Row was something like that, what I've gotten to when somebody says it, and it's the same when my friend does this. Have you watched this? No, but let me tell you, if you like that, why don't you go watch Penny Dreadful? I just almost turn people away from it. I'm not going to watch it because I've kind of looked at it. It doesn't look like it interests me, but you ought to try that.
Well, we had, what was her name from Penny Dreadful? Myrna, right?
Yes.
The actor was so powerful and had such presence.
Eva Green.
Had such presence that she becomes a focus of the show that I don't even know they intended for her to be the focus of the show. And it just had such really, really interesting characters. The actors are great. They're big. And as much as I like Orlando Bloom, I'm not getting that sense from the first 2 episodes I've seen that anybody is.
Well, I think what Penny Dreadful had going for it is that it's taking stories that we're very familiar with and twisting them just enough.
Yeah.
Now,
but Dark Crystal did the same thing. I mean, we had this gigantic fantasy world. I really don't have a sense of this world that the fairies are escaping from, to why they would be in this kind of dark, dank place. I almost needed to see something interesting to set off why this is.
Well,
so
it also
awful.
did one of my least favorite things in the whole world. You know, fine, Star Wars can have its scroll. The Lord of the Rings films can spend the first, about 10 minutes telling you the story. But it starts with a bunch of words over black, and they almost like smokily go away. Here's my problem. They use so many words and terms that I'm like, what? That I'm spending so much time trying to figure out what the fuck they're talking about. By the end of it, I have no idea what's going on.
Did you guys watch Mary Queen of Scots?
No,
I never did.
We tried to watch it this last weekend for the first time, and it did the exact same thing. It said, hey, here's the history of these characters up to this point. Go.
Mm-hmm.
And as interesting as, the situation was, the scenarios, the kingdom, the everything like that. What?
I'm laughing because Nala is just snoring completely while you're talking. I can hear it.
I'm boring. I'm sure the audience is too right now as we kind of
Anyway, please go ahead.
But it threw us in the middle of this historical moment in this period without giving us any of the setup. So I'm thrown into this scene with all of these people that I'm like, I don't have any excitement or any tension. I'm just thrown into this moment. And it was we checked out about midway through the film because we're like, I don't care about these people. I don't care about any of what's going on.
Isn't it an interesting time, though, that we can sit here and bitch about that, hey, these type of things aren't engaging us? When you think about Carnival Row, if that had hit when we were kids, we probably would have been like, holy shit, this is amazing.
Vampires and all
because
that
it's
kind
so
of stuff,
different.
witches.
Penny Dreadful would have floored us. But now we're, because right now I've got one episode to go. Sacha Baron Cohen has a show called The Spy that's on Netflix. And again, it's made by one of the creators of 24. It's pretty good. It's okay.
Sacha Baron Cohen, is it a comedy?
No, it's a drama, and he plays this man, Eli Cohen, is
reality,
actually, who basically was one of the greatest spies in Syria and Israel history that really fostered a lot of what the tensions, he knew what was going on. Compelling story, but look, he's a good actor. He's really good. The directing with him, you want to talk about something where it's kind of like, it needed a little more histrionic somewhere in it. It's just kind of bleh. So, at the same time, if I had had that as a kid instead of watching another episode of SWAT, it would have been the most revelatory thing to me in the world. Like, wow. So we're in this golden age of television where we're looking at dragons that are realistic and then bitching about, fairy wings that look like limp, wet towels.
Right.
So I feel kind of shitty when I poo-poo those things, but at the same time, you're in the golden age when I can watch a fucking dragon that looks real, and it's amazing until it gets to the last season.
We have 400 different titles over there on my comic book wall.
Yeah.
Right? and I have something that might appeal to somebody just based upon the choices that we have.
Right.
But that doesn't mean I make a recommendation people are just going to love. Just because I like Saga doesn't mean everybody's going to like Saga.
They're stupid if they don't.
But I have to move through